All right, today is all about one of my favorite topics, reframing. And I always say, if you were to boil everything I do, everything I teach, everything that works down into one simple concept, it would be reframing. And if you can become a master of reframing, then you can become a master of your own life, a master of the way you feel, and a master of any and every situation. And so, what do I mean by reframing? Well, a lot of times it starts with looking for the good in a situation, by creating perspective, by looking at what's happening and going, what's good about this? What is okay about this? And you know, it's that moment where you're saying, oh, this traffic is a nightmare. Going, you know what? This traffic is an inconvenience, sure, but I'm in my car. I can listen to a podcast. I can listen to music. I can call a friend I haven't caught up with for a while. I'm so grateful for modern technology. And you know, actually, since I don't really have to do anything, I'm just sitting here, I can just make the most of this time because, I mean, that's it, isn't it? Making the most of whatever you're in. People go, oh, just positive thinking, but really it changes your whole experience of each situation, you know? And if you imagine that every moment, everything you experience, everything you go through, you're putting a brick in the foundation of who you are. And whatever house you build with those bricks, that's the house you're going to live in. So if you I know this is a funny analogy, but just roll with it. So if you build a house one miserable brick at a time, then you're going to live in a miserable house. And we see people, you see people who can go on a vacation and find the bad in everything. Oh, I hate this seat. Oh, there was a baby next to me. Oh, it rained on day 3. Oh, the staff is terrible. You're on friggin' vacation. Most people only get to go on vacation one time a year. You know, we found those people that can find the negative in everything and are living such a miserable life because and they didn't just become that person overnight. One brick at a time, they laid that foundation, and now they live in that house of negativity. So you, by reframing, can decide, am I going to lay a brick of positivity or a negativity each and every moment? And if you build that foundation one brick at a time, this beautiful, positive, wonderful house to live in, then that, and I'm talking figuratively obviously, but then that is what you live in. That becomes so normal to you that if you can find, you know, the joys, if you can reframe being in traffic, if you can reframe having, you know, people cancel on me sometimes or reschedule, I don't usually get upset. Sorry, let me correct that. I never get upset with clients, and I usually don't give them a hard time about it. You know, people are all going through things. Sometimes someone reschedules maybe a little bit later than I would like. And I just go, well, now I have this time to do something else. I'm actually really busy, so now I have time to catch up on this. Of course, if it becomes a pattern, of course, you know, if it was something that was happening all of the time in my business and becoming a problem, I would set a boundary there. But you know, so many people go, oh, this thing happened, this cancel, this is the worst thing ever, now I'm going to do, I'm just going to be miserable. Well, now you have time to do something else. Now you can go, maybe you had this unexpected hour. Maybe you can go take your dog for a walk and enjoy some sunshine. Or maybe there's some work you need to catch up on. Or maybe you can surprise your partner and bring them flowers. And choosing to lay that each moment at a time, see the best in every situation, to reframe it, put it in perspective, lays that foundation for that amazing house. And so, you know, when you're getting stuck in traffic, when you're having someone cancel, when you're having plans change unexpectedly, and you're finding the best, that becomes your normal, that becomes who you are. And then when big life things happen, like maybe, you know, a career ending or relationship ending or a pet or a loved one dying, then it's so familiar to you, it's so normal to you to reframe things, to keep them in perspective. And of course, we're going to grieve in those situations. We're going to experience it. It's not about disassociating from what we're experiencing, but it's about being able to keep it in perspective and not having one thing come along and just shatter our whole experience of life, because we're aware there's many things going on. There's a good in everything. There's a silver lining. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's so many phrases, these common phrases that actually have a lot of wisdom in them that we've heard so frequently that we're kind of desensitized to them. So become a master of reframing. And, we've really laid the foundation for it this whole week. Of course, we've been interrupting that old voice. We've been installing the new voice. We've been asking ourselves, is this true? That in itself is a really powerful tool for reframing. We're just reinforcing it, making it simpler, making it easier. And of course, obviously all of the language shifts that we've worked on, all of that is reframing as well. But just want you to look at like reframing as a concept and as being the core concept of what all of this is. And so you don't have to, as time goes on, you can just take all this stuff you're learning and put it under one label, reframing, which has a massive power. And another big thing is like, well, what do you reframe to? Well, looking for gratitude. I talk about this all the time. There's so many people in the personal development world being like, be grateful, have a gratitude journal, all this stuff, but they don't understand why. And the reason is we can only focus on one thing. Just like with the blinking and the breathing, your conscious attention can be only on one thing, and whatever you focus on, you experience as though it's real. So if you're in that traffic and you're saying, this is a nightmare, then your body's starting to go, oh yeah, this is a nightmare, this is awful. Maybe you get fidgety, maybe your heart starts to race, and we don't want that. And going, this is fine, I've got half an hour to just hang out in the car, to catch up on my podcast, to listen to some music, to call a friend. Then you feel good, you feel happy, you feel at peace with the situation, so you can find gratitude in every situation. Sometimes you wake up and go, oh, I don't feel good today, the weather's bad, or wake up and like, look at where I live. My worst problem is the weather because I live in a country and I live a life where so many of my needs are met. I don't have to worry about food or anything like that. I have a pet, I have a partner, I have so many good things. And I have the ability to create my own. Finding that gratitude will change the way you feel about so many things. And if you need some help, there's always one of three things that you can find in any situation. Something you need to improve, something you can learn, or something that's like motivation or inspiration. So what I mean by that is going back to that story of struggling with anger, I could look at that and go, oh, I needed to work on my self-discipline in this situation, and then so even with us now, with this working on language, maybe you're doing great, and then when you're in a certain circle of friends, or when you're with certain people, or maybe even when you're with your partner, you notice it's harder, you notice it takes more effort, and maybe you get swept away and you're speaking in the negative and you've kind of like let go. Well, the good in that is now you can see, I need to work more, I need more discipline, I need to wire this in, I need to make this more familiar, more normal to myself before I'm fully ready to embody it in every situation. The second is there can be a lesson in many situations. So, back to that story about my business, if people were rescheduling or canceling all the time, there's a lesson in that. I don't have to go, oh, this is the worst thing ever, why don't people respect my time? No, I can adapt. We all have the ability to. The lesson in that would be, oh, I set a rule, I can set it in my software, and even just, in my terms, you have to reschedule or cancel 48 hours out. 48, so many businesses have that, so you don't have to, you can spend the time getting upset about it and saying I'm a victim, or you just go, no, okay, this is a thing I've noticed, there's a lesson in this, I'm gonna adapt. Maybe you read an email from your boss or something, or you watched some news that was upsetting late at night, and then it was spinning in your mind was going and you were struggling to go to sleep. Bonus, that's a time to use your 2-minute mindfulness to shut that down. But anyway, say something like that's happening. The lesson, you don't go, oh, they did this and now I'm so upset. How could they have messaged me that? How can this be going on in the world? No, that's giving all your power away. You have all the power. The lesson in that is don't, be on your phone. Don't have work communications after 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Don't watch the news at night, watch something positive instead. your phone has all of these things now. You can have do not disturb. You can set that only your personal contacts can get a hold of you at a certain time of day. So instead of being disempowered by the situation, empower yourself to adapt, to take the lesson, and to make a change. You don't want to be caught in the same cycle all the time. And the third one is we can take motivation or inspiration from situations. And something I learned about in my training all the time is that it's not the things in our life that affect us, it's the meanings we attach to them. There's a great, some of the great examples are, parents that have had lost a child, which is probably one of the absolute, where I can't even imagine what that would feel like. It's probably one of the worst things that can possibly happen. But some people go, oh, this is going to define the rest of my life. And other people go, you know what? I'm going to form this incredible organization, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I'm going to change the world because from this terrible tragedy, this terrible situation, they've taken inspiration and gone, I'm going to use this as motivation to make a change. You'll see people that have had, and these are obviously extreme stories, but I just want to make the point that, because people will often go, oh, well, but this is worse. So I'm going to start with some of the worst things and realize that the things that, you think are so much actually can just be reframed. So, another one is, people, some people will have an injury. I mean, I know some people that have had, a bad leg, and they confine themselves to a wheelchair for the rest of their life and go, oh, this is poor me. And, I'm sure that it doesn't feel good. I'm not being unsympathetic to that situation. I'm sure that that's not great, but we all know someone that's gone, oh, I have a bad leg and I can't do this anymore and I can't do that anymore, and they find all the things that they can't do. And then there's other people that are become paraplegic and go on to compete in sports, that go on to compete in the Olympics. I saw a guy that had a TikTok account the other day, and he doesn't have the use of his hands, he only has the use of his feet, and he literally goes, dare me, tell me what you think I can't do, and I'll do it. And people say, play the piano, all these things, and he doesn't accept I can't. He goes, no, this is my situation, but I am using it as motivation to be able to do anything. And so a more relatable situation you can take is that you might have, had a beautiful relationship end terribly, or a terrible relationship end, and instead of being like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'll never find love again, looking at that and going, I didn't know enough about love, I didn't know enough about myself, I didn't know enough about how to be in a relationship. I had a relationship in Australia, and when it ended, I was really upset, because not just because the relationship ended, but because I felt like I didn't know enough. I didn't know enough about why did this happen? Why was our communication not enough good? Why was this not the right partnership? How can it be that it takes so long to really get to know someone, and that 2 years can go by and then all of a sudden all this conflict emerges? And so I was determined to not get in another relationship until I had educated myself more about relationships. So I took that situation and used it as inspiration and motivation to educate myself, to be better about that, about relationships, about communication. And I feel like after that, I was in a much better place, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this again because I've moved on. Maybe you lose a loved one to a disease. I lost my stepmom to ALS, and people have situations like that, and they use that as inspiration to create charities, to go and do things. And you can do that on a huge scale like that, or you can do it a small scale in your life. Even things like, sometimes people get the heaviest they've ever been, and that's finally the motivation that they need to really commit to a health and fitness regime and become the person they've always wanted to be, to have the body they've always. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom to go where we want to go and be like, no, this is enough. And that's what I mean by motivation and inspiration. So there's always something you can improve on, something you can learn, or something that you can be inspired or motivated by in every situation. And the more you can practice finding that in every situation, the more easily you'll find it. And so finally, for the exercise today, I want you to think of 2 or 3 situations in the past that you maybe would have described as some of the worst times of your life as terrible situations. And I want you to look for that silver lining. What was the good that came out of that? What was the one of those things? What was the lesson, the thing you could improve, or the inspiration? You know, and if you go, well, I lost a loved one and there's nothing good about it, it was the worst thing in my life. Well, the thing that you might take from that is how much you value loved ones, how much you value time with others. That might be it. It might be that simple. So I want you to, your exercise today is just to think of, and you can write it down or not, think of 1 or 2 times, it's just probably good if you write it down, is to think of 1 or 2 times that you think of as, you know, being really bad times from the past, and going, how can I reframe those? How can I learn or adapt or be inspired by things that happen? So I hope that you're doing amazing. I hope that you love reframing as much as I do. And we're almost done this week. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.